Whoa, hi. It's so weird to be making a video again, but hi, I'm Olivia, big biblio ghoul, and I wanted to make a video because when Anya and Tasman posted about Climathon this year and it being a 12-month long thing, I haven't been reading as much these days, but I wanted to make a video about my picks for Climathon because I got really excited and it's a topic I love, and I was so happy that it was expanded into a whole year-long thing so that I could read all of the books that I wanted to read. So there are some prompts for these different books. The first one is an interesting start actually because I tried to read a book for this prompt, and I tried to read No Country for Eight Spot Butterflies, which is a book about Guam and activism there against military bases being built, and also just poetic and reflection on like activism and just different writers and different people that have inspired the author. And it was a great book and I really enjoyed it, but there were some parts that reflected on plants and indigenous medicine, but that was only for one poem, I think, so I didn't think it was fair to count that book for plants, so I'm going to pick a different book. Actually, I think Anya mentioned it in her TBR or recommendations or something. It was the book Around the World in 80 Plants, which seems like something that's right up my alley. Trying to get at larger themes through looking at plants, and it seems to be the kind of thing that reflects on how plants are integrated with humans and our traditions and our beliefs, which is something that I love. The next book I'm very, very excited about. This is for the prompt, a book about animals or fungi, and I was reading a bunch of books about the ocean over the past year or so, and Anna Marie from Actual Spinster recommended this really lovely book to me, which was actually one of my favorite books that I read, I think, 2 years ago now. That book is called Undrowned, Black Feminist Lessons from Marine Mammals, and it's a really beautiful poetic reflection on animals and how they've adapted and changed over the years and their resilience and what we can learn from them as humans. And I went to see her speak at a college near me, and it was super lovely. And while I was there, I picked up this book, which is called Dub, Finding Ceremony. It says, in these prose poems, Gums channels the voices of her ancestors, including whales, coral, and oceanic bacteria, to tell stories of diaspora, indigeneity, migration, blackness, genius, mothering, grief, and harm. Tracing the origins of colonialism, genocide, and slavery as they converge in Black feminist practice, Gums explores the potential for the poetic and narrative undoing of the knowledge that underpins the concept of Western humanity. So the next prompt is books about consumerism and capitalism. And a few years ago, I just hauled a bunch of books from, I think, Haymarket, and this was one of them, and I'm trying to read the books off my shelf. It's called Extracting Profit, Imperialism, Neoliberalism, and the New Scramble for Africa by Lee Wengraf. And one topic I'm interested in, especially in light of the genocide in Palestine, is learning about resources and the dependency on extracting them from different countries. I'm actually reading Walter Rodney's book. I think is it Why or How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, and I think it's giving me a good background in that. I mean, it only goes up to I think the 60s or 70s, but I'm interested in kind of starting to hear about that thread in this book and maybe seeing how that continues in this book here. I'm also just really interested in that topic for other continents and countries. So if you have any recommendations on good books for that, I would love to hear that. So the next prompt is a book about oceans, and I think Dub could have fit in this category, as well as a few of the books I'm talking about. And this book could also certainly fit in multiple categories. It is Aina, Hanau, Birthland, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing those Hawaiian words. It's by Brandy Nalani McDougall. And my mom got me this for Christmas. Thank you, Mom. I was really excited because, I had a few books on my list that were more, well-known and accessible, and I was really excited that she got this for me. She also loves reading about the environment. So yeah, this book is poetry as well. So it's kind of similar to The No Country for Eight Spotted Butterflies, in that it is talking about colonialism and resisting, corporate interests on the island and how that negatively impacts the environment. So it looks like there are a lot of poems that focus on the ocean, but I'm sure it'll also be talking about land and, will fit into some of the other categories discussed earlier. The next book is a book about connection. I think most of these books can fit into that in some way. I don't have it in person because it is coming out later this year. It's called What If We Get It Right? Visions of Climate Future, and it's by Aina Elizabeth Johnson. I read All We Can Save: Truth, Courage, and Solutions for Climate Crisis last year for the readathon, and that book actually had me feeling very hopeful and inspired because it was a huge book, and it touched on so many different angles of climate justice work that is happening, and for especially like a topic like this that feels so overwhelming and so and like we're doomed, it was really helpful to hear all of these small and big, I should say, ways that people are fighting to save the planet. So it did make things feel more connected in that way. I also listened to, for a bit, that How to Save the Planet podcast, which she was a co-host of. So yeah, I'm really excited for, again, more hope and this angle of climate futures. And while that book was looking at solutions to things, I'm excited for this angle of what can we build in an ideal scenario, or maybe not even that, just like what can we build and what is there to look forward to. And yeah, so I thought that was a great pick for connection. So the next category is a book by an indigenous author. I have As We Have Always Done: Indigenous Freedom Through Radical Resistance by Leanne Bettis-Mosasque Simpson. And I picked this up last year when I was visiting, what are they called? When I was visiting Blue Stockings, a little bookstore in New York, on a trip, and I wanted to buy like every book in that store, but I chose only 3. And this was one of them. I mean, there is a chapter in this book specifically called Land as Pedagogy. So, I mean, I know it will be directly focusing on that, but it seems like there's also going to be a lot of discussion of imperialism and capitalism. It says, it makes clear that the goal of indigenous resistance can no longer be cultural resurgence as a mechanism for inclusion in a multicultural mosaic, calling for unapologetic, place-based indigenous alternatives to the destructive logics of the settler colonial state. So yes, all for that. The next book is for the Revolution and Change category, which again, a lot of these can fit into just because that's a topic that I'm really interested in. So this is Compañeras Zapatista Women's Stories by Hilary Klein. I guess Hilary Klein is not from that area, but she did live there for many years. And so if you have any Zapatista stories from like women Zapatistas themselves, I would love to hear those recommendations. So yeah, obviously the movement was fighting for a lot of different things, but a major part of this fight was land and access to it and food. and indigenous interests versus the larger country trying to displace people from this land. This is just my baseline initial understanding of this movement, which is like zero, and I'm really excited to learn more about it. So yeah, those are all the books that were on my shelves that I'll be reading. There's also, for the next prompt, a book by an activist. I've been following this activist for a while, Leah Penniman, and it seems like it'll highlight the perspective of multiple activists. Sorry, I'm looking at my computer a bunch because I'm horrible at remembering titles. But it's called Black Earth Wisdom, Soulful Conversations with Black Environmentalists. So really excited to hear those perspectives when everything comes out. The next topic is a book about food, and I kind of stumbled upon this when I was looking into books by authors from other continents. I ran into the work of an activist, Vandana Shiva, and she has an autobiography called Terra Viva, My Life in a Biodiversity of Movements. I know she's also written books specifically about food in India, but I'm hoping that since my library has a copy of her autobiography and it's more recent, that she will talk about these topics, and if not, I'll have to read one of her other books. But I think it will be great to just like start out with that wider perspective of her work, because I know nothing about environmental struggles in India at all. So I think it'll be a good introduction, even if it's not specifically mentioning her work around food, although I think it will. I also saw that there was some kind of documentary about her, but I think I just like accidentally saw it one day. So I know that that's one of the extra things for this challenge, to watch some documentaries, so I think that would be a great one to watch. The next category is a book about Earth, and for that I'm choosing White Skin, Black Fuel, On the Danger of Fossil Fascism by Andreas Mame with the Zetkin Collective, which is a European collective. So I think it will be a little focused on the US, but also focused on Europe and that need and control for oil. And I'm really excited to have a deeper dive into the awful mechanics of that industry, which like I know on a surface level, but not the insidious details and players involved. So we have two more categories. The next one is a book from a different continent, and for that I chose A Month and a Day, A Detention Diary by Ken Saro-Wiwa with William Boyd. And he was an activist in Africa that I believe was actually killed for his activism. I was trying to find books by African activists for this category. I know there's a more recent one I also wanted to read, which I'll put like a thumbnail of and a link of below, but I also thought it would be cool to have that longer history of different environmental movements there. Again, this is the book that my library had, so I'll have to see how that one is. I know there are more recent books about him, but I'm excited to hear things from in his own words. Again, very much a story of access to land and resources versus huge corporations in the area. And then for climate fiction, I'm choosing a book that I saw on the Storygraph account. So if you have Storygraph and you want to join the challenge, there's one there. I'll put the link in the description as well. It's Afterglow, Climate Fiction for Future Ancestors. So again, I'm really interested in thinking about the future and thinking about what we want to build as well as what is falling apart around us. So those are my picks for Climathon. A little rusty, but happy to be making a video again. As soon as I saw the announcement, my little booktuber wheels started going, and I just was digging into all of these book possibilities and getting so excited to read them. So I don't know if I'll make many videos or be a regular YouTuber again. I just was really interested in this idea, and so yeah, yay. I'd love to hear any recommendations you have for books about the environment, especially if they are focused on some of the topics I was talking about. I tend to like to learn about the environment from a human perspective, from a political perspective, to understand like the world we're living in right now. So I'd love to hear if you're participating, what books you are reading. Hope all is well with you, and yeah, bye.